I want to switch gears, if I'll find the clicker, to our last but not least, and quite a meaty topic. Again, a few years ago when I was asked what open source is about, it's just a techie thing, it's just a developer thing. Well, I hope that with this last section, you have something to go back and show for as to how open source addresses some of the key priorities that we see at C-level in the industry. I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with Log4Shell and Log4j and what happened a couple of years ago. Since then, not just in financial services, but certainly financial services was one of the industries that had to be very careful about addressing not only the immediate vulnerability and the risks. It's one of the most sought after industries in terms of attacks. But any industry out there woke up to the idea of protecting their software supply chain security, and particularly the open source software supply chain security. As you know, we all know, as Emily said before, we build on open source, on thousands and thousands of potentially packages, open source packages. And again, what I want to show here is that this is not something that is now relegated to, a developer or just the CIS organization. The FTC a couple of years ago said, hey, boards, it's your responsibility. If there's data that is leaked of your customers, you can't just blame, your techies. This is a responsibility at top level of the boards. And so, not only we have a supply chain working group, a supply chain security working group, which I encourage you to join. We have a lot of sessions today around this topic. And of course, it's not just about sort of what we bring into our supply chain, but it's also how we then, run it. And so Radiant touched on common cloud controls. This is one of our, most, I guess, diversely contributed project from a corporate standpoint. We launched it last year. It was spearheaded by Citi, made the news. It was actually very timely as it came out a couple of weeks before the White House actually put a RFI, for harmonizing cybersecurity control for regulated industries particularly. So if you don't know, if you're not familiar with this project, check it out. There's going to be, hopefully some really interesting announcement coming out in the next few months as the industry is coming together to build, harmonized cybersecurity controls for, especially across the major cloud service providers. And now with the 3 CSPs in FINOS, we are able to, 3 major CSPs, I guess, in FINOS, we're really happy to hopefully, again, have a broad adoption of this standard. So supply chain security, C-level priority. Regulation and compliance. I don't think anyone would be surprised. As I don't originally come from financial services, when I joined, I was like, wow, this industry is not really customer success driven, is regulator success driven. And that's when we realized that there was an opportunity to collaborate on mutualizing interpretation and implementation of regulation. If you think about open source and what we do as a foundation, it's pre-competitive. So typically we collaborate on things that are non-competitive, for which requirements apply to a broad spectrum of our community. And of course that, collaborating on will allow you to cut costs. And regulation remains one area where there is constant pressure for, reducing costs. And so we have so many building blocks right now in the foundation, from the CDM to Morpher to Legend to common cloud controls that can be used really to build ultimately complete blueprints for how to comply with different regulations. In fact, we are now in the process of building a DRR blueprint within the auspices of our OpenRecTech project. Not only so, but if you want to, again, if you think that this is just single led projects, actually this has evolved very much into multiple firms collaborating on common building blocks around regulation. This is a case study talking about the evolution of Morphere, where originally contributed by Morgan Stanley, now leveraged by Capital One and contributed to by Capital One and many other firms out there. But don't take it from me. I am very excited to bring in one of our earliest champions, one of the most important sort of FINOS powerhouses. Kim Prado is the CIO for US Capital Markets, Office of the CEO at BMO. She is a SteerCo member of the Open RegTech Council, and she used to be our chair. So Kim, please join me on stage.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be back here in London for OSSF. This is going to be a great day. And all the panelists and the speakers so far have been phenomenal, so thank you guys. And I just wanted to say, as the CIO of Capital Markets, my job is difficult, but it's even more difficult with all the regulatory change that's going on. And part of what we have to do, not only facing off with the regulators, but also make sure that we're driving our technology strategy in a way that scales and enables us to act quickly and adopt new regulatory requirements, basically almost on the fly, as crazy as that may sound. But you've really got to be able to move fast and be able to provide that level of transparency across the full life cycle, from pre-trade all the way through to settlement. And with that, one of the great things that's come out of this foundation is the Open RegTech Council that was put together. And part of the reason why BMO joined this was because the benefits just clearly outweigh the commitment that you have to put in, which are time to market, networking with your peers, just learning and communicating with folks that are in the same position as you, and also leveraging the tooling that's out there to help you normalize your data. And one of the things that we've been very focused on is CDM, the common data model, and leveraging that not only to satisfy the regulatory requirements, but also use that across the ecosystem as like a force multiplier effect. So, we all know that the RegTech world is tireless, relentless, exhausting, and expensive. But if you can turn the glass and make it half full and look at it as your most innovative stream, you can now reuse that platform to drive true innovation across your client analytics, your real-time risk, and any other type of alpha that you want to provide to your business. And that's basically what we've been able to do. And really the key goal with all of this is by joining the community, you get the opportunity to actually have a voice as well on how these tools work and what we should be doing next. So I encourage everyone to scan the QR code and join us on the journey. It'll be really interesting, and I think that you'll find a lot of benefits. Now, also, I just want to point out that this entire organization is something that, in our world, is being looked at from the highest level of senior management. This made it into our annual shareholders report. Literally, I had no idea they were doing that. Just so you know, I stumbled upon this. So just thought I would share that with everyone. And thanks for having me. Over to you, Gab.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wait, what are we doing again? No. Kim, thank you so much for your support. And I gotta say, I'm gonna look at it again. I got this 2 days ago, and I'm like, wow, we surely made it a long way from where we started. So thank you so much, Kim, for your championing. Now, you mentioned the CDM, and so I need to send a shout out to this project. If you guys are not familiar with the Common Domain model, it's a project contributed by 3 large trade associations about 2 years ago now, which is growing massively, not just in adoption, as we see organizations rolling it out in production, but one of the key reasons why it was contributed was, again, to be hosted in a neutral space, and our hope was to help them grow the community around it. So the other day when I was checking stats and I saw that contributions went up about 50% in the last year, well, I feel like we're doing quite well, considering, this is a data standards. It's really hard to agree on data standards. And as I said before, going back, there are organizations that are joining us, again, not just for one project, but certainly the CDM is something that both the Japanese Securities Clearing Corporation and DTCC are very much looking at. In fact, don't miss all the sessions and actually the closing keynote panel where we're going to talk about the CDM adoption. And I want to make another announcement. Regnosis, one of our silver members, has completed the contribution of Rune. Rune is a domain-specific language, formerly known as Rosetta DSL. You can actually check out the press release that was issued a couple of days ago. And I want to make sure that I bring on stage someone that can talk to it way more intelligently than I can. Leo Labaze is the founder and CEO of Regnosis. Welcome on stage.
Thank you, Gab. Thank you to the FINOS Foundation. Warm welcome to everyone. I'm very excited to be here today. So Regnosis is a collaboration platform for regulatory reporting. And earlier this week, Regnosis announced that it was contributing its regulatory reporting language, Rune, to FINOS, with the backing of a number of industry leaders, including BNP Paribas, JP Morgan, and DTCC. So I would like to spend the next few minutes just describing that project and how you, the FINOS community, can engage with it. But first, why is that project important? The industry spends billions every year trying to comply with complex data reporting requirements. For every reporting regimes, firms must sift through thousands of pages of legal text, which they must then manually interpret and codify in their IT systems. And as a result, while many firms share the same reporting obligations, they all implement their regulatory logic in slightly different ways because of siloed technologies. So that exposes them to the risk of non-compliance and fines, and it also degrades the quality of the data that regulators, the quality and comparability of the data that regulators collect. There is an obvious solution to that problem, and it's to leverage open source. And that would empower firms to mutualize their implementation costs and to standardize that reporting logic. So Rune is an open source domain-specific language, or DSL, that allows industry members to contribute, test, and share their regulatory logic in a technology and system agnostic way. Rune stands for Rule Natural Expression. The language is designed to be human readable, which means domain experts without programming knowledge, so think of operations or compliance professional, can code regulatory logic in a fully functional and direct way, a bit like you would do in Excel. So this empowers many different users to work across organizations' boundaries, to take part in codifying the reporting rules without the risk of loss in translation when you implement that into IT systems. And finally, that language integrates seamlessly with Regnosis data modeling platform, Rosetta, which is also made available under a free version to the community. Rune has been deployed for production implementations of trade reporting under ISDA's Digital Regulatory Reporting Program, which you've heard about earlier. So that industry program has expressed all the global trade reporting rules in the Rune language by leveraging the Common Domain Model, or CDM. So the CDM is an open source data standards for financial products, trades, and life cycle events. And it was initially contributed by 3 trade associations, including ISDA, and is now under the FINOS open source governance. So all these Rune-powered collaboration projects are backed by several financial institutions, such as JP Morgan, BNP Paribas, Standard Chartered, DTCC, and GSCC, that include new or existing FINOS members. So with that, I invite you to the fireside chat today at 5:45, where some of them will be discussing their adoption plans around CDM and DRR. And in the meantime, please follow the Rune and CDM projects at FINOS. And you will also find instructions to sign up to our platform to play with the Rune language and to see the CDM and DR projects there. And with that, I'll hand over back to Gab.
Thank you so much, Leo. I'm definitely putting my steps in here today. How are we doing on time? Oh, less than 10 minutes late. Like, we are Italianly on time, I guess. So, last but not least, this is an area that I'm very excited about, personally, professionally, and I think it's one of the areas that remains a C-suite priority for 2024. If you look at all the analyst reportings out there, climate and sustainability aligned investing remains a priority for financial services. It's almost business as usual for the C-suite. Remains a priority for regulators as we see new regulation coming into effect. You know, the EU CSRD being probably the most notable example around it. And really is a priority for every industry out there, as we all have, you know, an impact on climate change. So talking, again, might be repeating myself, but talking about open source as a positive sum game, this is an area where, you know, by driving and building accelerating solutions that are so high priority for the C-suite, we can actually do something great for the world. So this is an area that, again, I'm very, very excited about. And I also am equally excited to have Michael Tiemann here with us. Michael Tiemann is the OG of commercial open source software. He wrote the GNU C++ compiler in '87, and, well, I guess I'll let you tell him the rest. Welcome, Michael. So excited to have you here.
All right, thank you so much. In 1989, I started the world's first company providing commercial support for free software, and that gave me a front row seat to see the future. The start of the World Wide Web in 1990, the first release of the Linux operating system in 1991. I was there when open source was coined and the first top 500 computer in the world of supercomputing ran Linux. In 2000, we sold our company to Red Hat, and I became their CTO. In 2003, the Human Genome Project leveraged open source to sequence the genome and make that a free, public domain good for medical research and science. And thank goodness we had that to build our genetic technologies. In 2005, Bruce Mau headlined the first Red Hat Summit, and he began with the question, now that we can do anything, what should we do? In 2007, NYSE Euronext did its first trades on a Linux-based platform, and fast forward 10 years, 500 of the top 500 supercomputers run Linux. And today, 28 stock exchanges in 24 countries do their trades on Linux. Countless other financial systems run mission-critical applications on open source. So I ask you, the open source community here in London today, now that we can do anything, what should we do? Well, this is the slide that keeps me up at night. It is one thing to know with mathematical certainty what happens to global temperature as CO2 increases. And by the way, that won the Nobel Prize in 2021. But it's another thing to begin to see the effects of climate change intruding into the most modern of societies and economies, and to see how quickly we could lose everything if we don't get GHG emissions under control. The 1.5C number is not an eat your vegetables number. It is a do not break glass number. And it's not just the scientists saying so. The Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, GFANZ, represents over $80 trillion in assets. The NZAOA is a member of both GFANZ and OS Climate with $9.5 trillion of assets under management. In order to make the $7 trillion a year of investments annually to meet the world's net zero goals, corporates, financial institutions, and governments need data and analytics that they and we can trust. If we can't build that trust, and make those investments and take the necessary actions, it could cut GDP by $38 trillion and possibly up to $60 trillion a year by 2049. So a quick look at what some of those technologies include. The first piece of the net zero puzzle is assessing physical risks. There's a featured session at 1 p.m. today that will go into the details of how climate hazards, asset exposure, and vulnerabilities can be quantified in terms of financial risk. I urge you to attend. The second piece of the puzzle is transition scenario analysis. Integrated assessment modeling, which won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2018, simulates the complex dynamics of water systems, climate dynamics, population, natural resources, hundreds of thousands of interacting and independent variables to reveal how scenario assumptions lead to global welfare outcomes. The third piece of the net zero puzzle is portfolio and sector alignment, which translates corporate GHG disclosures into temperature scores that investors can use for both investment and exclusion decisions. And the final piece of the puzzle is a data mesh that enables federated data governance and scalable data management for a much wider range of data and data types than typical financial data found in analysts' Excel spreadsheets today. OS Climate is building open source tools and technologies to put the pieces together up to and including the building of public data sets as a public good that can inform policies and impact investment decisions to reach net zero ASAP. The race we need to win is not a race against each other. It is a race against a climate future that none of us can afford to lose.